Back in the early 1990s, Games Workshop did something unusual. They wanted to scale up some of the massive war machines that were only available in their small-scale, Titan-focused tabletop game called, strangely, Space Marine. It would later be called Epic 40,000, which makes way more sense. Anyway, instead of making these models themselves, they licensed an American company called Armorcast to produce these massive resin kits based on the Epic range. Among them was the Orc Great Gargant, which was, at the time, the largest, heaviest, and most expensive Warhammer 40k model ever produced. Apparently only 313 were ever made, and that was 35 years ago, and since then they have been scattered all over the world. Today they are incredibly rare. Some of them have been lost along the way, most of them are hidden away in private collections. The ones that do come up for sale, often pretty badly damaged, still end up selling for ridiculous amounts of money. Now, a few content creators have made videos on lookalike 3D prints, but honestly, as cool as they are, that's just not the same thing. To get a hold of the genuine article to paint in a YouTube video, well, it's practically impossible. So let me show you how I got one. My name's Guy, you're watching Midwinter Minis. This video has been kindly sponsored by Wayland Games, and man, I think I might just be the king of tangents, because the reason how I got hold of the Orc Great Gargant model was because I wanted a paint set. I've made about 350 videos on the channel, tons of them painting tutorials, and literally for years, since 2019, I've been talking to loads of different paint companies about making a Midwinter Mini starter paint set with the 14 paints that I regularly use in my speed painting videos. It was originally going to be called the Midwinter Mini Speed Paint Set, but the army painter kind of beat me to that. Not that I'm bitter about that at all, you understand. I thought it was going to be a pretty simple thing to get off the ground, but as it was going to be my first ever product, I wanted it to be just right. And long story short, there were just so many issues for years with all the prototype sets from different companies, whether that was inconsistent paint opacities across the different colors, the behaviors of the wash paints especially, or their glossiness after they dried. The price point was also important to me too. I didn't want it to be a really expensive premium product. I wanted it to be obtainable for beginners as well. And yeah, unfortunately I was just never happy with whatever prototype I was working on at the time. Until now, I suppose. If you've watched any of my videos in the last 2.5 years, you'll have probably noticed that I tend to gravitate towards paints from TT Combat. Not exclusively, obviously, I still use loads of Citadel, AK and Vallejo paints, but TT Combat have definitely become my go-to. They tend to tick all those boxes that made me reject the other paint sets: uniform opacity, finish and behavior. I even use them predominantly in my Golden Demon finalist entry. And basically I got chatting with them about the idea of reviving the Midwinter Minis paint set project. And I promise you, I'm like 50% there on the how I got hold of the Gargant story. Just bear with me a second. So to seal the deal, last December, I went on a little road trip to see some family and some awesome friends, a 700-mile round trip to Cornwall, where Troll Trader are based. And yeah, like you just realized, it suddenly dawned on me that the TT in TT Combat was Troll Trader. Now, I wasn't really too sure what to expect, to be honest. I was kind of imagining a small office setup where they outsourced production of loads of different products and maybe dropship stuff from warehouses, but yeah, I couldn't have been more wrong, because it was an enormous double warehouse factory absolutely full of laser cutting machines making MDF terrain kits, old school manual resin casting setups, and bays of people going through thousands and thousands of secondhand Warhammer collections, carefully breaking them down, stripping them, cleaning them, cataloguing them, photographing them, and listing them for resale on their website. I had a really great day with the team at Troll Trader. We had a really productive meeting about the paint set, and I even got a tour of their whole facility, including the on-site brewery too. Honestly, this place is like a nerd's dream. Rare minis and IPA, 100% sign me up, thank you very much. And just before I left for the long trip back to Colchester, I also got shown some of the owner Louis' prized possessions, including the legendary metal Thunderhawk gunship, a complete, as new, 2nd edition Space Orc army box, and would you look at that? He's only bloody got the fabled Armorcast Gargant right at his desk, overseeing the whole operation. He said he loved it, but he really didn't like the paint job, but he knew he wouldn't be able to do it any better himself, and he asked if I would like to have a go at it, maybe make a video for the channel. And then things kind of were a little bit of a blur, and then before I knew it, I'm driving home with a model in the backseat of my car that's probably more expensive than my car. So that's how I managed to get hold of one of the rarest, most sought after, most valuable, and still one of the biggest Warhammer miniatures ever made. It never actually made it to my place though, because I took it straight to Steve's studio. My twins are 4, and they like playing with my Warhammer stuff. I let them be hands-on. If they break stuff, it doesn't really matter, I can fix it, it's only toys, and they're mine. And, you know, they'll probably be theirs one day too, if they want them. But this Gargant, this isn't mine, it's someone else's. So this chunky little legend lived at Steve's studio for a few months. Louis said he was in no rush, which was good because we've had it for 9 months and I feel very guilty. Anyway, with October 2025 rapidly approaching, I thought it would be the perfect way to kick off the month. So let's get this thing painted. Probably the perfect time to mention the sponsor of this video and my go-to for when I need to top up my hobby supplies, and that's Wayland Games. They just moved into a new, enormous facility, but they haven't forgotten their roots. The whole place is staffed by painters, gamers, and the best kind of tabletop nerds, real people who enjoy the hobby, like you and me. They even have gaming tables for break time play and cabinets full of painted models in their office. Now, I know you're going to hate me for mentioning this, but it's only like 11 weeks till Christmas when this video comes out, so I reckon it's the perfect time to set up a wish list on their website. Not only can you share it with friends and family to give them gift ideas, but you can also use it for yourself to get notified of when stuff comes back into stock and when price drops happen. Now, I don't have a discount code or anything like that for Wayland Games, just a link, but that's all you need. They have permanent low prices, 20% off Warhammer, 10% off Lego, and even 5% off Gundam. They ship all over the world, taxes are calculated at checkout so you don't get any nasty surprises at customs, and free shipping is available on all UK orders over £20. Amazing. Use the link in the description or in the pinned comment to let them know I sent you, or capture that QR code that's on the screen and see how far your hobby budget can stretch. Also, thanks to the aforementioned legends at Wayland Games, I've now got some funds that I can use to pay Steve, legit one of the best mini painters to walk the earth, to help me paint this monster. I picked up some absolute essentials on the way to Steve's studio, and then we set to work. First, we need to make a plan. This model already has a pretty thick retro paint job of what looks like about only 6 or 7 colours: red, black, brown, white, silver, green, and bronze. And while the paint is quite chunky in some places, a lot of it, mostly the black, is surprisingly smooth, so we thought that stripping the paint entirely might actually cause more damage than it was worth. It was super dusty though, so we gave it a quick clean up with some soft brushes and then fully dismantled it. Most of the sections are just simple locking joints with a peg and a hole it slots through, easy enough to take apart. The movable arms just have bolts going right through into the resin of the weapons. I mean, it's simple, but it works. A pain in the butt to undo though. It also had some non-original Orc glyph plastic parts from early Orc vehicles and Gorka Morka kits, and Louis asked us to remove anything that wasn't on the original model, so yeah, off they came, some easier than others. Now, this is kind of funny. The maker's mark says Armorcast 1990, which means the sculpt was completed about 4 years before Armorcast started officially licensed model production for Games Workshop, which makes me wonder if the Gargant model was used as a kind of demonstration prototype by Armorcast to show Games Workshop what they were capable of, hoping to maybe strike up a business deal. It's just speculation obviously, but I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility. Also, amazingly, the bolt holding the massive crotch cannon on has had green stuff squidged into it in an attempt to keep the gun nice and erect. It didn't really work though, it's still dragging along the floor like a mechanized tape here, but hopefully we'll be able to figure out a way to proverbially blue pill the weapon when we put it back together later. Now, the details on this model aren't at the level you'd expect from modern kits. Everything is very soft and gentle, which makes the hard-edged mold lines really stick out. So we went around the whole thing with craft knives and scalpels, scraping them off and recarving some of the detail that was softened out around them. Whatever red paint was slathered on to get good coverage over the black primer was pretty chunky, so we hit all of those areas with some fine grain sandpaper. There were also a couple of areas that had obviously taken some knocks, so we gap filled them with superglue and sand and filed them smooth. After that, everything got a nice warm soapy bath and a gentle scrub down to remove any stubborn dust and loose paint. Also, FYI, Steve's not the kind of person to dry things off with a hairdryer, aka a normal person. No, he uses a heat gun. Look at that thing glow! I'm amazed it didn't melt the whole model. It certainly made the studio smell pretty toxic though. Fun, thanks Steve. Prime time! And even though Louis gave us carte blanche to paint this Gargant however we wanted, we thought that just giving it a classic goth scheme, but with a glow up, would be the way forward. And with that in mind, we reprimed the whole thing with a few different paints. Matte black from the Colourforge for the bulk of it, but having such a massive model be just plain black would be pretty bland, so we gave it some colourful underpainting to work up from. This rust effect paint will also add some super subtle surface texture, giving it a more realistic metal look on the big surfaces. We also sprayed up from the underside with this Army Painter purple spray paint, and then used our pal Mikey's signature colour, Reliquary Red, to add some warm vibrancy on top to counter that purple. Reassembled indoors again, and you can see that this is a way more interesting, colourful place to start working from than just a boring old black prime. These colours will mostly be covered up because we'll be painting in pretty transparent layers, so these undertones will hopefully shape the overall look of the model. We drew up a plan of action for our different colours, basing our reference on this, the classic Codex Orcs from 2nd edition Warhammer 40k, which actually features the Gargant on the cover art, hidden in plain sight in the chaotic background. So for the black armour, which is basically everything at the moment because we haven't figured out what's going to be other colours yet, we sponged on some of this Vallejo Somber Grey. We then airbrushed some of this anthracite from AK over the top, smoothing out and softening that texture. We went back and forth on these steps a couple of times to get to the point where there are loads and loads of subtle layers of texturing going on, and then used black Templar contrast paint through the airbrush, but aiming at the lower half of all the panels to make them appear darker at the bottom than the top. Next step was to base coat all of these silvery metallic elements with the super dark Vallejo Jet exhaust paint. Gorgeous! All the creases and crevices of the black parts got a coat with some very thin AK burnt umber paint to give it that dirty, grimy look, and it's difficult to shade black after all, so you need to take it somewhere else colour-wise. We then edge highlighted the black armour with progressively lighter greys, but it was only after Steve had practically finished this section on the shoulder turret that he realised that this wasn't going to be one of the parts that we said was going to be red, so yeah, typical. But yeah, the trick is just basically highlighting the top edges of stuff that sticks out, or the bottom lip areas of recesses inwards. Then you get this cool trick of the eye effect called trompe-l'œil that makes the details really pop. For the red sections, we masked off the areas around them and gave them a base coat with a lovely AK wine red through the airbrush. We then sponged on some white onto the top sections to create a brighter undercoat for the next steps, a more transparent but much more vibrant red. And then some Bile Red contrast paint through the airbrush to boost the vibrancy even more and smooth out the transitions. Some lovely chocolate brown thinned down lots into the recesses, under the big bolts and in the cracks to make some subtle shadows, and then the final step for the red was adding some subtle chipping effects using a sponge and a tiny bit of dark brown paint. And then doing the old trompe-l'œil highlighting underneath those paint chips to trick the eye even more into thinking that it's real patina. Yes, yeah, look at that peel, yes. Time for some more complex designs. We went around a few of the areas adding checker transfers, very orky, and once they were dry we scraped some of them away to simulate wear and applied some thin glazes of browns over the top to make them look a bit more aged. We also masked off some areas and sliced up bits of masking tape and created our own bigger designs too, like checkers on the big boob armor plates and this awesome spiky razor blade toothy mouth design straight out of the Codex. The bronze areas got a liberal coat of this rust wash and then highlighted with progressively lighter gold using a stippling technique to get that beaten, rough look. Some Garagax sewer around the rivets and bolts to help boost the contrast. I mean, it's simple, but it works. Now, given that this model is the pride and joy of Louis, the owner of Troll Trader, I thought that it might be a nice touch to write Troll Trader on the model somewhere using orc glyphs. The fun little orky written language that's detailed in a few different books, but the most comprehensive one is in the old Freebooters book. The only problem is there still isn't a glyph for troll. And there isn't a glyph for trader either, so I basically went through the whole language and found the best match. Big, Mutant Merchant. Perfect. We masked off some squares on the jaw armor plates, dabbed on some specks of this latex masking fluid so we can rub it away to create a realistic chips later, and then sponged greys and whites over the squares to make the backgrounds for the glyphs. I then freehanded the glyphs I chose onto the squares. I mean, they're pretty simple designs, it's nothing special, but I think they came out pretty well. Off comes the tape, and oh yeah, they look great. I rubbed off the masking fluid, added some little scratches with a light wash filter towards the bottom, and yeah, tidy. The random little wood huts and wooden door parts got base coated with this vibrant purple to give them a fun undertone, and then I dry brushed and stippled on some progressively lighter desaturated browns to give it a sort of bleached or birch wood look, to nicely contrast against all that dark armor. I mean, we're getting there. To emulate that gorgeous green glow of the eyes on the cover art, Steve cranked out all of his OSL tricks. First using layers of thinned white paint to pick out the lower edges of the lenses and windows, and while he was doing that, I quickly added some shades and filters to the tiles. Who says men can't multitask? Come on. Steve then built up a mottled effect in the center of each eye lens with the same white, before giving it a puff with the airbrush to smooth it out. Then some of this Vallejo Mecha fluorescent yellow to add some glowy eye-popping colour. Some Hexwraith flame around the edges of the lens of the eyes, but some Imperial Fist on the glowy window parts as we want those to be a warm glow rather than green. And then finishing the fiery tones with some Magma Droth flame. A final touch of very thin white at the bottom of each window pane and the eye lenses just to prep for the final touch, which is a little bit of Bad Moon's yellow to finish the effect. Gorgeous. Actually, I lied. He then added some purple contrast paint, very thin to the outside edge, opposite each of the most vibrant glowy bits to bump up the saturation and contrast. No wonder this boy's won a Golden Demon. I'd have called it a day about 5 steps ago, honestly. He then also did a quick yellow, red, blue, black transition to create a muzzle burn effect on the massive arm cannon. A big fat washer under the bolt that holds the crotch cannon was the perfect way to keep this mighty girth from dragging along the floor in front of him, and then time to assemble and see what we've got here. Oh yes. One last thing before we show you the finished model. This bit here sort of looks like there should be a gun coming out of it, like it's a bull turret or a gunner nest or something, but in all of the original promo photos and every other genuine model we've seen pics of, it always looks like it's just a blank hole. Well, we thought we'd give Louis the option of just keeping it blank, if he wants it like that, but Steve sunk a secret magnet into that recess, letting him attach a few different custom Orky weapons that he designed. A very nice touch, I reckon. Both Steve and I knew there was a big weight of expectation on this video, even though hardly anyone knew we were actually doing it, simply because this is one of the best condition Orc Gargants around, and we've restored it and repainted it on a video that might get hundreds of thousands of views over the years. This particular model will probably become the definitive version that people refer to with pictures. All the mystery about the original old digital photos and awful low resolution scans leave so much to the imagination, but this thing is here. It's real. It's been nicely filmed, hopefully, all of its details laid bare. It's also a way for thousands of hobbyists to live vicariously through our experience. This isn't something you can get hold of every day. We know it's rare, so we try to do it justice, and I suppose do you justice as well. Here it is, a 35-year-old relic of what many people consider to be the golden age of Warhammer, all rendered in stunning 2nd edition Space Orc goth colours. And now I kind of need to get this thing back to its rightful owner. I want to get this video out as close to the start of October as I can, and it's currently Sunday the 28th of September, and I'm literally about to go and pack this into the car and start the big old 700-mile round trip to Cornwall to get this back to Louis. Before I go though, let's do a few quick size comparisons. A classic 2nd edition Gretchen and an Orc Boy, it absolutely dwarfs them. Modern Ghazghkull, modern Death Dread, tiny by comparison. Gorkanaut, Stomper, the biggest plastic kit, and the Gargant. This thing is a monster. In fact, the only models that I have that make it look small are obviously the Warlord Titan, that towers above it, and my custom built Great Gargant that I made from junk and kids' toys. I really don't think people get how big this thing is. I should probably start charging it rent. Okay, let's get this thing in the car and hit the road. Unfortunately, even though he was so crucial to getting the model looking this good, Steve can't join me on the road trip though, totally gutted. He has plans he can't change. Fear not though, because on the way I'm going to be staying over with a familiar face to help me get some footage of the handover. Horus Lupercal himself, David, aka Exeter Cosplay. Oh, they came off! First day of driving done, 253 miles, not bad. Second day, Exeter to Cornwall for the drop-off, but first, breakfast. What you got there, David?
Classic potato dog. Breakfast of champions.
They don't have corn dogs in England. That doesn't look great. An hour later, and we're at Troll Trader, and Louis hasn't seen any updates yet.
I'm so mega impressed. That's absolutely insane.
Santa, happy birthday.
Wow. I was going to try and do the whole fake kind of like, I hate it, whatever, I can't, I'm like, totally beaming like that. Yeah. I like the little glitter around its like jaw and everything else.
So,
yeah,
I thought it'd be nice for you to have, because like Troll Trader is your thing.
Yeah.
I thought of having Troll Trader as the glyphs, but Orc language doesn't have troll in it, doesn't have trader. So what you've got,
do you not have troll?
I know.
Yeah.
So what you've got
Yeah.
is huge, earthy mutant merchant.
Love it.
That's the closest I could find.
Gun options.
Optional guns.
Sick.
To put on it. Honestly, it was so cool to see Louis' face light up getting his freshly painted Gargant back. And it was also very, very cool to see this. The Midwinter Minis core paint set prototype, essentially ready to hit the go button on production at Troll Trader. As I said, this project is essentially 6 years in the making, and yeah, I'm obviously not going to win any business awards, but I'm proud of it, and I hope you might find it useful too. 14 awesome paints based on the colours I've used in all my classic speed painting videos for like 7 years, all with incredible coverage, smooth as silk and with a beautiful finish. And best of all, pretty affordable too. And it's also available for pre-order right now. So check out the link in the description. Anyway, a massive drive up north to stay overnight with my uncle.
Hello.
And then the final leg home in the morning the next day. Time to pick Nessa up from the kennel. Total mileage on the trip clocking in at over 750. I'm not really telling you that to impress you so much as keeping evidence for HMRC. So back in the studio making the video, the Gargant's gone, but I've got this. And if you want to find out what this ridiculous kit is, be sure to subscribe. Maybe hit the like button too. I don't know if that still does anything, but give it a tickle for old time's sake, would you? Now, by the way, Nessa has had some really extensive dental work done recently. She had awful teeth when I first got her from the rescue centre, and I recently stumped up the cash to have the problematic ones removed. Let's see if she can still catch sausages gifted from the channel's newest Patreon supporters with only half her teeth. Okay, this one's from Hunter Watts, Ryan Goosling, 67, McGobbo, Grimdork, Ben M, Craig James, Andrew H, that one Skaven under your bed, Mark Moskins, aka Bumfluff, and he who rags Nans, the beautiful James Connolly. 9 out of 10. You still got it, Nessa. You're a sausage fiend. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out this video's sponsor, the awesome Wayland Games. See how far your hobby budget can stretch. And I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.